Good afternoon. Today's Tuesday, July 17th, 2018, and this is the second hearing of the month for the hearing officer for the City of Tempe. My name's Vanessa McDonald, and I'm the hearing officer. I have something that I need to read into the record this evening, and then we'll go ahead and we'll jump right into our agenda this afternoon. The City of Tempe hearing officer is authorized by Arizona Revised Statutes and the City of Tempe Zoning and Development Code. The hearing officer has the duty to carry out both the provisions and the intent of the general plan and the Zoning and Development Code. The hearing officer is granted the authority to conduct public hearings to review and either approve, deny, continue, or approve with conditions of approval any of the following applications: use permits, variances, and property abatements. On today's modified agenda, we have 6 items. We have a set of minutes, 1 property abatement, 4 requests for a use permits, and a variance. Agenda item number 3 has been removed from the agenda because that property owner has brought their property into compliance. And also, I'm going to say at this time, I am going to shift the agenda slightly and take a couple of items out of order. Item number 7, the Ayala Parker residence, is going to be heard before the variance, which is agenda item number 6. So I'll transpose those 2 cases. I think we have more attention on agenda item number 6, so I want to, out of courtesy to the later applicant, move them up on the agenda. As the hearing officer, I've carefully reviewed the City of Tempe Community Development Report that I've been given prior to this hearing. You'll see me refer to it during the hearing. And additionally, I drive by each of the development sites so that I can have a good understanding of the as-built context of the proposed development. So perhaps you've seen me drive by your neighborhood to take a look at a development site. To applicants and interested citizens, when your request is called or when I call you up to address the chamber, if you can just step up to the microphone and state your name and city of residence. We don't need your street address. And if you're here to speak on a case and you're not the property owner or applicant, if you can please take some time to fill out a white speaker card and hand it up to a staff member. I've got plenty already on a number of the different cases, but if you're here to speak and you haven't done so, grab a speaker card and you can just go ahead and get up and do it now if you want to, and hand it to a staff member and they'll hand it to me. It keeps the meeting flowing a little bit faster, and I know I can announce who's on deck after one of the speakers. Any person who is aggrieved by a decision rendered today can file an appeal within 14 calendar days after the hearing officer has made a decision. The deadline for appealing any decision rendered today is 3 p.m. on July 31st, 2018. And appeals of the decisions of the hearing officer are heard either by the Board of Adjustment or by the Development Review Commission, depending on the type of application that has been heard. And property owners, if a property is being abated, if the property is brought into compliance prior to July 31st, the abatement will be vacated by the city. But if the property is not brought into compliance within that 2-week deadline, again, the deadline is July 31st, the property will be abated by the city. To make some introductions, again, my name's Vanessa McDonald. Joining me from the Community Development Department are Blake Shimke, Dalton Guerra, Lee Jimenez, Steve Abrahamson, and Karen Stovall. So I've dispensed with the formalities. The first item on our agenda is consideration of meeting minutes for July 3rd, 2018. I had a chance to review the minutes in the packet I was given, and I believe that they accurately reflect what took place at that hearing. So I'm going to approve agenda item number 1, the minutes from July 3rd, 2018. That brings us to agenda item number 2. This is a request for abatement of public nuisance items at the Waymire property located at 1411 South Bernardin Lane. And the applicant is the City of Tempe. Mr. Glab.
Good evening. Michael Glab, Residential Code Inspector for the City of Tempe. I'm here in reference to the property at 1411 South Bernardin Lane here in Tempe. In February of this year, my office received a complaint related to the backyard landscape of this property. On February 13th of this year, I responded to the property and observed a violation of our junk and debris code for the city related to some stored items in the backyard landscape. A notice was then mailed to the property owners at their last known address. On February 27th of this year, I responded back to the property, observed little to no change, and mailed the second notice to the last known address for the property owners. On March 15th of this year, my office received a second complaint related to the backyard landscape, junk and debris being present there. On March 19th of this year, I responded to the property and observed little to no change. So I then posted a notice to the structure itself informing the occupants that I would be escalating the case for failure to comply. On March 26th of this year, I responded to the property, observed that the violation was present, and as a result of that inspection on the 26th, I issued citations to the property owners on the 27th. On April 16th, I responded back to the property, observed little to no change. I issued second citations to both property owners. And then on May 3rd, I observed little to no change at the property, sought bids for property abatement in preparation for tonight's hearing. On June 15th, I responded back to the property, observed little to no change, and submitted the packet for addition to tonight's agenda. At no point since February 12th has a tenant or owner for the property contacted my office despite phone number and email being present on the 3 letters. And then the 2 citations, to my knowledge, either failed to appear or they paid, but they did not contest either citation to my knowledge. As a result of the debris that was present in the backyard landscape, I'm seeking approval for a 180-day open abatement period, and especially in the event that new items get added to the backyard landscape over that 180 days.
Okay, thank you. And the dates, the photographs that are in the staff report, what are the dates of those approximately? And what's the last time you observed the property?
I did go by the property today, but I did not submit the photos as the packet was submitted back on June 15th.
Okay.
So the photos would have been accurate as of June 15th. Anything in addition to that hasn't been submitted to the case yet.
Okay. This was one where I wasn't going to, peek over the fence into the backyard, so it was hard for me to observe myself, but I'm glad you went out there today. So no change as of today, correct?
Stuff's been moved around, but it's still incomplete.
Not actual removal. Thank you. Is the property owner here this afternoon wishing to speak on agenda item number 2? I don't see anyone. Thank you, Mr. Glab. Call to the public. Is there any member of the public here this evening wishing to speak on agenda item number 2? Again, I don't see anyone, so I'm going to close the public hearing. Based on the information contained in the staff report, and like I said, I wasn't able to actually look over into the backyard of the property, but based on Mr. Glab's testimony that he went out there today and that there has been no observable change to the property, I'm going to go ahead and approve the abatement, the 180-day abatement that you're requesting for the items, for the nuisance items at 1411 South Bernardin Lane. Thank you.
Thank you.
My mic just go out? Hello? Okay, now. Agenda item number 3 is no longer on the agenda, but the property has since been remediated, so we're now at agenda item number 4. This is a request for 2 use permits to allow for a second-story addition to a single-family residential home and to provide required parking within the front yard setback for the Lee residence located at 221 East 14th Street. The applicant is Michael Underhill, and I have a single card from the public for this case. So if you're here to speak on this case, I'd like to again say, hand a card to a staff member. Mr. Jimenez.
Good evening here, Officer McDonald. My name is Lee Jimenez. I'm a senior planner with the Community Development Department in the Planning Division. The Lee residence is located on Lot 12 of the University Park Addition subdivision, which is situated on the south side of East 14th Street, 2 lots west of South Normal Avenue within the R16 single-family residential district. The applicant, Michael Underhill, is proposing a 1,690 square foot 2-story addition and demolition of an 875 square foot carport and old home addition. The new addition will provide approximately 1,947 square feet of new living space. When the project is complete, the residence will consist of 5 bedrooms, 4.5 bathrooms, a living room, family room, library, study, and a studio workshop. Furthermore, a new designated parking area is proposed for 2 vehicles within the front yard building setback, situated on the west end of the front yard. To date, staff has received 2 emails in support and 1 letter in opposition to the request. Those in support are not concerned with the proposed design. However, they hope that the final design of the north elevation will lend itself to the historic characteristics of the lot in the neighborhood. The individual in opposition is concerned about the final intention of the site, since there is no guarantee that the house will be utilized as described in the letter explanation. Furthermore, he doesn't believe that the application meets the approval criteria, and he is concerned that the use permits do not consider the historical designation and character of the neighborhood. Based on the information provided by the applicant, the public input received, and the analysis provided in the staff report, staff supports ZUP 180061, which is the use permit to allow a 2-story addition. However, staff cannot support ZUP 180062, which is the use permit to locate required parking within the required front yard building setback. Staff believes ZUP 180061 meets the required criteria and will conform to the conditions provided in the staff report, but doesn't believe that ZUP 180062 meets the required criteria. It is staff's opinion that relocating the required parking will change the historic character of the front elevation and yard area, thus diminishing the historic characteristics of this and nearby properties. And I'll be available if you have any questions.
Yeah, can you put the site plan up when you feel best represents the parking situation? Attachment 9, maybe? So if you can show me where you think the best alternatives for the parking would be rather than what's being proposed. I know there's an alley behind it, correct? And staff suggested alley entry
That
parking?
is correct. The proposed project is also consists of what's labeled as a workshop studio area, which is about a size of a garage to house maybe 2 tandem parking spaces for vehicles. And it does have a roll-up door, which is accessed through the alley at the rear of the property. And the proposed location of the parking, well, the original parking was located on this end, which is the east end of the property, under a carport. And the proposal is to demolish this carport and to locate the parking in this area here, which is 2 parking spaces on the west end of the front property yard, or the front yard.
Okay. And also, what was the nature of your outreach to the historical, the Office of Historical Preservation?
In coming up with staff's opinion, I consulted with our Historic Preservation Officer. In his opinion, he felt that relocating the original parking area to the front would screen away the original architecture of the building. He was concerned about the 2nd-story addition, that maybe it wasn't too set far back enough. But as far as what they're proposing for the site, this site itself is not the reason why the historic designation of this neighborhood is in, I guess, in, I'm at a loss for words, is the reason why they may lose their designation, basically.
I don't.
Oh, he felt that this property, excuse me,
Okay.
is not the reason why this neighborhood is at risk of losing the historic designation.
Okay. Mr. Abrahamson, did you want to jump in or no? Oh, okay. I thought you were pushing your button. Okay, thank you. Is the applicant here this afternoon? Sir, if you'd like to come up. If you can state your name and city of residence.
Michael Underhill, Tempe.
And you are the architect for
Yes.
the case. Do you have anything to add to what Mr. Jimenez presented? And also, I would first of all have to ask you if on behalf of your client, you've read the conditions of approval contained in both applications, and if you would
Yes.
agree to abide by those.
Yes.
Okay.
So first, should I speak just to, I'm nervous, so should I speak to just the kind of several issues I'd like to
Okay.
raise? So
Any
first
way
of
you'd
all-
like to do it.
Okay, so the letter in opposition from a Mr., I forget his name, but from Mr. Tenney.
Mr. Tenney.
I would like to make sure everybody understands that my client and I are in complete agreement with him that we're not trying to build this as a fraternity. And we're concerned that, we want to make very clear that Mr. Lee is moving there with his wife. They plan to have children, and they plan to have in-laws live with them, hence the size of the house. Just to back up a little bit, I used to own the house. Mr. Lee is a friend of mine. He was a student of mine. I teach architecture at ASU. He was a student of mine, an employee of mine for a long time in my architecture practice. He subsequently moved to New York City to practice with a very prestigious firm, and now wants to relocate his family back to Tempe. And so he contacted me about that, and we're going to work together in the future. And we talked about where he's going to live. And I said, well, I'd like to sell this house. It's been a rental. I bought it a long time ago, hoping I could live in it. Various circumstances meant I couldn't, so I've been renting it. And I would like to see it become an owner-occupied single-family house. So he and I worked out a deal where he bought it, and I'm helping him to renovate it now. But there's no intent of it being used for anything. Like, I'm a big advocate of us having fewer rentals, and certainly rentals where it's a party house. And that's not our intent. So what I'm concerned about is that objection, the raising the specter of that being what we're trying to do here, gets into us, the recommendations here saying that even they want to change how many bathrooms we have, which I just feel is like crazy. Like there's a staff thing that if something's approved, we shouldn't be allowed to have one of the bathrooms that's en suite to one of the bedrooms upstairs, which the Lees want to have for a female child. So we want to make clear that that's not what's going on.
Okay.
Secondly, I'd like to raise the issue of the drive. So one of the reasons Mr. Lee and his family want to live here is that we are very, very enthusiastic about the city of Tempe's effort with public transit. And we would like to have no automobiles. We would like to have no automobiles on the site if that was possible. And intend to use public transit. And part of the reason of relocating here is that we can walk to things. And not going to be able to. I moved here 25 years ago, lived in walking distance from a grocery store, a post office, a coffee shop, a dry cleaner, and lived for 2 years with no automobile. The first 2 years I lived in Tempe. And Mr. Lee and I have talked about that as a kind of way of life that's possible in this neighborhood. What happened was we went to the city to show our plans in a preliminary fashion, and we're informed that if we use the garage from the alley in the back, we would have to pave the alley at our expense. This increases the construction budget for the project by over 35%. We went to a contractor, talked about how much it would cost to pave the alley from the garage we would build to the end to college, and said, well, that's not possible. And we're informed by the planner that we had to have 2 parking spaces on the property, and so the only way we could do that with the plan we wanted to do was to put this driveway in the front. We'd prefer not to have it. We'd prefer to do away with it, but not at $60,000. We can't afford that. He can't afford that. It's just crazy. We'd love to put money into a fund that other residents along the block could put in, so when enough people do it and want to use the garage, we would be able to help in paving the alley. But the current situation is that other people are using the alley to access garages. Why do we have to pay for it? It's just unreasonable. Secondly, so the idea that if we did do a driveway in the front, that it can't be on the west where we propose it, which is where we have the entry to the house, that it needs to be on the east side, I would argue against, because the existing carport, I want to emphasize, is not part of the original house. It's part of an illegal addition that was done some years ago before I bought the property, that added bedrooms and a bathroom and a carport on the side. It's a flat roof. It's in very, very, very bad condition. It is not part of the original historic nature or layout of the house. I haven't done historic research to see if they tore down a carport, which was replaced with this one, but this one is definitely an existing carport, and therefore I would argue the position of the driveway is of no historic relevance. It's not part of the original house. I would suspect that this house, when it was built, probably left a larger side yard setback on the east side, and thinking that someday they might build a garage in the back and you could have a driveway access to it if you wanted to. We would like to not do that because it eats up a lot of the backyard. So if we could resubmit this with no front driveway and be allowed to either use the back but not have, or figure out a way to ask for a variance to not have to pave the entire alley, we'd love that. Thirdly, the other request I'm reading in here that's like if it says, if it's approved, they want to have the original front door left in that position. And also want to comment simultaneously on the letter, another letter received from a neighbor asking us to be more careful about the historic context. And we would prefer, like, the house is going to be contemporary on the inside. We'd like to make it contemporary on the inside. Mr. Lee is perfectly willing to spend money on, the windows are in very bad shape. The original steel sash are in very, very bad condition. So we've researched into Torrance steel and to Hope windows to look for replacements for those that would be the same as the original windows that were put in. But we'd like to be able to reconfigure them and not have to have a front door. The existing front door is a wooden front door in very bad condition. And we would be, we would leave the block, the original block, repaint it, and it can be done in a way that picks up on the existing character, historic character of the building. So we're sort of troubled by that specificity of asking us to leave that front door.
Okay. Staff, I have a couple of questions. What is the rationale for the bathroom modification for condition of approval number 4?
Hearing Officer McDonald, given the context of the area being located so close to the university, knowing that on the floor plan you have multiple master suites, which we consider a bedroom with an attached restroom, or bathroom, excuse me, we felt that this would relieve some concerns from the neighborhood should this be converted to a lease or a room or a house that leases rooms out to students. So that was the rationale behind including that condition.
Can I speak to that a little bit?
Sure.
If the intent was to have a house that we rented a bunch of bedrooms, the master suites wouldn't be made the way they are. You'd make every bedroom the same with a private bathroom. The house is designed with 2 master suites, and the letter that Mr. Tenney wrote said the master suite upstairs, he questioned the honesty of the idea that there was going to be an in-law because an older person wouldn't walk upstairs. Well, the idea, the way the house is designed, there's a large master suite with a study and an extensive bathroom and closet for the owners. They're going to live upstairs. There are 3 bedrooms for kids, two for kids and 1 for a guest suite. One of those has the bathroom private, the other 2 share the other bathroom. And then downstairs, there's a second master suite with a bedroom, and that's intended for the in-laws. So I don't, it's not, like, I could see if this looked like a hotel, that concern coming up, but that, we're telling you, I mean, I don't know, do we have to sign in a paper that says, Tempe, we will never rent this house to students or something like that? We're willing to do that.
Well, no, I don't think you need to.
But then-
It's legal within the Tempe city
But then to
limits
say,
to rent your own
but to make
home.
a decision based on a suspicion that we're doing something you don't want us to do seems to me to be crazy. Like, why can't he have as many bathrooms as he wants in a configuration that makes sense for his family?
Okay, and then the front door, the way I read this stipulation is the floor plan shall be modified to maintain the location of all the windows and door openings, but not the actual door itself. Mr.
Yes,
Jimenez?
That's the intent of the condition.
Okay.
Location of the openings, not the type of doors or windows.
So again, in these old concrete block, low-height concrete block houses, most of the houses, and this is one, have steel sash windows with casement windows. And we're prepared to say, yes, we will use those. The door is a wooden door and has a wooden frame. So it isn't made of the same steel, and doesn't, I would argue, contribute much to the historic character of the house. And if we replaced it, it's going to be stuck in a bedroom somewhere that shouldn't have a door facing the street. Because we rerouted the entry to the side of the house to come in where the addition meets the old house. And it's just kind of a pig in a poke to say we have to leave this door there.
Leave the door opening, you mean?
Yeah.
We're not saying the door itself. We're
Well,
saying the door opening.
We'd
You
have
would
to put
rather
it, we'd have to
close
put
up.
it, yeah. What we'd rather do is put two or three larger windows there. And we're perfectly prepared to say, can we, the one neighbor's letter, not the one I just read, but the other one, that says we wish that the architect would consider a more historic treatment. We're completely prepared to modify and talk more about the front elevation. But to have the stipulation we have to leave the door there ties our hands in the ability to do something interesting. So.
Well, I guess here's my, it sounds to me like you have a little bit more work to do with the neighbor. And I want to hear from the members of the public who are here this afternoon, but there's a little bit of uncertainty, it seems like. The condition of approval reads that you will develop this exactly as the plans contained in this application. And if what you're telling me is there's some flexibility to modify those plans.
Not the plan, but the elevation.
Right, well, the elevations are,
Yeah.
included in
Yeah.
here.
Okay.
Then what I'd almost like to see is for you to take a month and work and fine tune some of these details, so that we can come back and you can say, I talked to this neighbor, here's exactly what we're gonna do. And I think like I'd have a better opportunity, and everyone would have more certainty, both you and your neighbors, to address some of the issues so that to everyone's satisfaction.
Mm-hmm.
So that's my leaning. I still want to hear from the neighbors this afternoon. I have a card. You can go ahead and take a seat. Mr. Jimenez?
Hearing Officer McDonald, I just want to clarify the concern about the alley and access to the rear garage. I'm sorry if there was incorrect information provided to the applicant, but single-family uses that use the alley to access a rear garage or driveway aren't required to pave the alley to access the parking. And parking can be provided in the backyard, or required parking, can be provided in the backyard. So necessarily meaning that the use permits for the front yard, for parking in the front yard building setback are technically not required if the floor plan will show the workshop studio area to be used as garage or partially be used as garage to house the required parking for the house.
Okay. So that kind of even strengthens my rationale for wanting to continue this so that the applicant can work through those details, show that now we have a good understanding you don't have to pave the alley, because I was going to ask you if there was a cash in lieu opportunity or anything like that, but that requirement seems like doesn't even exist. So I'm going to go ahead and hear Mr. Jose Menendez. If you're here and you'd like to speak, since you made the time this afternoon, sure, I'd like to bring you up and hear what you have to say. And if you can state your name and city of residence.
Yeah, my name is Jose Menendez from Tempe. I live in 309, so a few houses from that property.
Okay,
And I'm speaking against that request. And I'm very concerned about the stability of the neighborhood, particularly east of College, 14th Street, between College and McAllister. This neighborhood is being encroached upon by ASU. We have some houses being used as rental property and not well taken care of. We have people renting out rooms. We have a very aggressive solicitation for parking spaces for garage usage by people who come to ASU. And I think that these requests, particularly the two-story request, even though there is a clear intention in this particular case of being used as a single-family home, but this will open the floodgates for many of the other properties there to be converted into two-story houses, and this will be the end of my neighborhood. And I am very concerned about that. I came to this neighborhood in 2000 and I had the house built. Now I had the same issue, okay, that the space I needed was a lot more than the lot would accommodate. So I sacrificed my backyard because it never crossed my mind to build a two-story house in the middle of my neighbors. In addition to that, I also had the same issue. I came to this area because I did not want to drive. I always had one car, and I wanted to build a one-car garage. The city would not allow me to do that. Then I say, okay, can I build my garage access my garage from the alley? No, you cannot do that. So I had to build a two-car garage, okay, that looks very ugly in my neighborhood. So I make the decision to twist it 90 degrees, eating up even more space for my property. And I had a two-car garage now at 90 degrees from the street so that my neighbors would not see it. And I built the front yard, green grass, just to match the neighborhood, even less space for my property. So now I have a very tiny backyard, and I see all that effort for nothing because now a few years later, people just come and build two stories. And I feel very disappointed, and I'm sort of betrayed if the city code applies to me, but does not apply to other people. So I urge you to reconsider this and deny this petition. So,
Okay.
thank you.
Thank you. Is there any other member of the public here this afternoon wishing to speak on agenda item number 4? Okay, I'm going to close the public hearing portion. So like I mentioned before, I think what I'm going to do is continue this case and not render a decision today, but continue it for a month. So what's this? Our first hearing in August is the 7th, so that would be the 21st? Yeah, so till August 21st.
Hearing Officer McDonald.
Mr. Jimenez.
August, we have 2 hearings. The second hearing in August is actually on Monday, August 20th.
Oh, on a Monday?
It's not on a Tuesday, so it's August 20th.
Okay, is that election related or?
Eid, religious holiday.
Oh, okay. Thank you. So not a Tuesday, Monday, August 20th. You can come back and we'll re-listen to your case and you can revise your plans accordingly and work with staff and some of the neighbors. Okay? Thank you. We're now moving to agenda item number 5. This is a request for a use permit to allow vehicle rentals for Tempe Gas Company, LLC, located at 480 West Warner Road. Mr. Guerra.
Good evening, Hearing Officer McDonald. My name is Dalton Guerra, Planning Technician with the Planning Division. Tempe Gas Company is proposing to rent moving trucks and trailers out of an existing gas station at 480 West Warner Road, located on the northeast corner of Warner Road and Kyrene Road. The applicant explained that the trucks and trailers are reserved online 24 hours in advance and picked up or dropped off on the site. One employee will be on hand during a shift, and the proposed hours of operation are 7 days a week from 6 a.m. to 10 p.m. To date, staff has received 2 phone calls, one in support and one in opposition. The one in support stated that the use would not have any significant impact on the area. The one in opposition stated that there's a potential for the trucks and trailers to block the view of his restaurant to the east here. thus having a negative impact on his business. Based on the information provided by the applicant and the analysis provided in the staff report, staff supports this request and believes that the application meets the required criteria and will conform to the conditions provided in the staff report. And I'll be here if you have any questions.
Have another site plan that shows a rectangle at the back of the property. There it is. So staff is proposing that the parking of the trucks be limited to that rectangle in the back of the property, correct?
Correct.
The applicant had asked for the smaller rectangles, the one over on Warner and then up against the landscape island between the adjacent restaurant.
Yeah, staff is conditioning that the trailers and trucks only be parked in the designated parking spaces to the north of the site.
And that would stem any visibility concerns,
Correct.
correct? Okay, thank you. I don't believe I have any other questions of you at this time.
Thank you.
Is the applicant here this afternoon? If you can come forward, please, and state your name and city of residence.
Joseph Schmidt, Scottsdale.
Thank you. And what's your relationship to the property owner or the applicant?
I am the
Mr.
manager at the gas station.
Okay, so Mr. Surrey, however you say it, Surrey is unavailable this afternoon?
He's in Egypt right now.
Okay. Are you authorized to agree to conditions of approval?
I am.
Okay. And have you read the conditions of approval
I have.
contained in the staff report?
And we have no problem with the location you want to have us park the trucks. And there'll be, at that location, there'll be no more than 3 trucks at a time.
Okay,
And we're not going to be having any kind of trailers there at all. It would
Okay.
just be trucks
so it's a limit of 3 trucks at the back of the
on
property
the back of the property.
as shown on the diagram.
Mhm.
Okay. Thank you. Anything else to add?
Nope, that's all.
Okay, thank you. Are there any members of the public here this afternoon wishing to speak on agenda item number 5? I don't see anyone here, so I'm going to go ahead and close that portion of the hearing. As the hearing officer, I need to go through the use permit criteria when I grant a use permit. So I'm going to do that quickly. I don't believe that granting this use permit will create a significant increase in vehicular or pedestrian traffic. I don't believe it'll create a nuisance arising from the emission of odor, dust, gas, noise, vibrations, smoke, heat, or glare. I don't believe it'll contribute to the deterioration of the neighborhood or downgrade property values. I believe it's compatible with existing surrounding structures and uses, and I appreciate the applicant's flexibility on where he will park those trucks and the number of them. And I believe he'll have adequate control of behavior both inside and outside the premises. So I am approving the application for the use permit to allow vehicle rentals contained in PL 180168. Thank you and good luck to you. As I mentioned before, we're taking the next 2 agenda items out of order. So agenda item number 6 will be heard after agenda item number 7. Agenda item number 7 is a request for a use permit to allow a 2nd-story addition for the Ayala Parker residence located at 1916 East Dunbar Drive. Mr. Jimenez.
Good evening. Once again, Lee Jimenez, Senior Planner with the Community Development Department in the Planning Division. The Ayala Parker residence is located on lot 338 of the Continental East 3 subdivision, situated north of East Dunbar Drive, 1 lot east of South Hazelton Lane within the R16 single-family residential district. The applicant, Anthony Guma, is proposing a 1.5-story addition onto the southeast portion of the existing home. The addition will consist of a split-level extension of the home where 2 bedrooms and a playroom will be provided in the basement level, and a new master bedroom suite and nursery will be provided in the upper level. Furthermore, the scope of this improvement project also includes a single-story mother-in-law addition onto the north end of the house with a single-vehicle garage, which is not part of the scope of this use permit. When the project is complete, the main residence will consist of 4 bedrooms, 3 bathrooms, a nursery, a great room, a playroom, as well as a mother-in-law unit with 2 bedrooms, a bathroom, a great room and dining area, a kitchenette, and a single vehicle garage. To date, staff has received 1 public inquiry from a neighbor whom is concerned that the additional bedrooms and living space will significantly increase vehicular traffic to and from the residence. On occasion, his driveway is blocked by vehicles belonging to or visiting the Ayala Parker residence. Based on the information provided by the applicant, the public input received, and the analysis provided in the staff report, staff supports this request. Staff believes this request meets the required criteria and will conform to the conditions provided in the staff report. And they'll be available should you have any questions.
Thank you. I don't believe I have any questions of staff right now, but as always, if I have them later, I'll ask you. I'm going to call to the public right now. I have a single, or I'm sorry, is the property owner here this afternoon? Sir, if you'd like to come up, please. Okay. You can state your name and city of residence.
I'm Anthony Guma from Chandler.
Thank you. And you are the architect for the project or
General
builder,
contractor.
the contractor?
Yes.
Thank you. So I know you're here and you're with your clients. There are 3 conditions of approval within the staff report. Have you read the conditions, and do you, on behalf of your clients, agree to the conditions of approval?
Yes, I do.
You do. Do you have anything to add to what Mr. Jimenez presented about the case?
No, we've had a few conversations to make sure everything is correct.
Okay,
So,
and your plans are pretty thorough. You know, you have a lot of different elevations and floor plans and site plans, so I appreciate that. I don't think I have any questions of you at this point. If you want to take a seat, I do have a question or a card from a member of the public. After he comes up and speaks, you will be given an opportunity to refute or rebut or answer any issues that he brings up.
okay, thank you.
Thank you. I have a card from Frank Astrain.
Hello, good evening.
Good evening.
So the only concern I have, I've seen the plans. The only concern I have is parking. It seems like the residents, it's going to be a single-family home. I was speaking to Mr. Jimenez.
Yes.
That's right. And so everything looks really nice. The house should add value to the neighborhood, all those things. The only concern I have is that in the past, their family members, the residents themselves, family members, they just seem to always block our driveway, okay? And so the concern I have is that as there's more added to the family, that this issue will only increase. I've seen the plans, I've looked at the drainage. The addition on the north side, I think, looks really nice, right? The setback is 5 feet, so I'm assuming that the roof itself is going to drain if it rains onto their property. So everything looks really good. The only concern I have is the parking. As far as my property, I only have one parking spot in front of my house. The rest of it is in front of all my neighbors. And so, again, I just want to, I think this is a public forum for this concern because it'll make it public. So that's all I have. I mean, it's just the parking. So I have some pictures of previous issues.
I have
You
them.
have them, okay.
I do.
Okay, so.
Yeah, and I can see, well, part of the problem is a lot of the neighborhoods in Tempe have these really shallow cul-de-sacs.
Sure,
So it doesn't
absolutely.
really provide for adequate on-street parking. So it takes a lot of cooperation between
Absolutely, yeah.
neighbors. If you have an event or have, visitors to your property, you really have to direct them
Sure.
where to park and how to not disrupt.
Absolutely, and I don't think that's a neighborhood, having to direct. I think it's the actual property owner.
That's what
Absolutely.
I'm saying, the
Right, right,
property
right.
owner,
Uh-huh.
if you're having a baby shower, a bridal shower, whatever, you need to make clear to your guests where they can and can't park. Have you engaged in a dialogue with the neighbors about the parking issues?
I have, and it's not always been so easy, but I think that just recently we made some progress. And so I
Okay.
spoke to the neighbor and I expressed my concerns. And so everything else, like I said, that's the only issue. And so for me, if I tend to leave at night, I wear glasses, and so it's harder to back up, to see, to make sure there's nobody behind me and things like that. And so I've come close to hitting some of the cars that are actually sticking out into my driveway, in front of the driveway, right? So the street, I know it's public, doesn't belong to them, doesn't belong to me. I understand all those things, but because of the way the properties intersect at the cul-de-sac, I think that it may look like my car's in front of my property, but it's blocking them. So to them, it may look like their car's in front of their property, but it's actually blocking me because of the way that the parkings or the property lines intersect, right? And so that's the only concern I have.
Okay.
I'm glad for them that they're able to do this, right? And like I said, the plans look amazing. It's just the parking that I'm worried about. During the construction, right, I've got some notes. During the construction, because they're gonna do 2 stages. They're gonna do, I think the north one is the first stage, and then the south side is the second. So I just wanna make sure that as the construction workers are there, as they're parking, that they make sure that they allow us access to our home, to our driveway, and things like that. So basically, that's really all I have. Now, I saw in the plans also that they have, well, I spoke to the neighbor, and he said that they're going to raise the wall, okay, that divides their property and my property. The only thing I would ask there is that if they do decide to do that, I didn't see it in the plans, is that both sides are finished nicely. That's all.
Okay.
Right? The concrete, the seams, and all those things. So, and if there's debris that falls onto our side, that they just clean it up. That's all.
Okay.
That's all. So,
Thank you. Those are all very reasonable
right,
requests, in
right.
my
So,
opinion.
so you have the pictures. So
I
it
do.
just kind of gives you an idea of what we've dealt with in the past. But hopefully, with our conversations that we've had recently, that we can move forward as good neighbors. So.
Okay, thank
So that's
you.
what I've
Thank
got.
you for being here this afternoon.
You're
Thank
welcome.
you for bringing up these issues.
Thank you very much.
You're correct. This is a good forum,
Yeah, and
to
Mr.
do it.
Jimenez gave me some numbers that I could call in case, for the city, in case maybe the parking issue continues. and
Okay.
stuff like that. So,
Great.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Would you like to come back up, Mr. Guma?
Again, I understand Mr. Estrain's concerns. Construction sites in the existing neighborhood are always an issue.
Challenging.
I think we've addressed the parking concern, that the mother-in-law suite will also have, besides the driveway, it'll have a single-car garage with it. So,
Oh, great. So that'll alleviate some of the pressure
and
on the
then the
neighborhood.
pictures, that's probably the pictures that he had, but some of those pictures are 3 years old.
Okay, yeah, I can't tell
And that's okay.
what the dates
But
are.
each picture that was presented, there was either work going on at the house, or there was a birthday party, or some special event, as you mentioned.
Yeah.
So,
And he admitted that the issues were in the past and that they've engaged in a dialogue and that there's
have.
been progress. So
the good thing is the property is on a corner, so people really don't have to park in the cul-de-sac. So if it's policed correctly, especially during construction, and we also have access, we have double gates in the alley. So
Okay.
a lot of the construction material and some of the heavy-duty things that need to be done can be brought in from the backside instead of the front side.
Right.
And that's the
So I'd appreciate if you, as the contractor, do manage, your employees, your subs, and give them proper direction to park in the appropriate spaces as you're doing your work.
we try.
Thank you. You can have a seat. Any other member of the public here who would like to speak on agenda item number 7? I don't see anyone, so I'm going to go ahead and go through, like I did in the previous case, the conditions of approval. I don't believe that granting this use permit will create a significant increase in vehicular or pedestrian traffic. In fact, it sounds like you have good plans for how to manage the parking for this property. I don't believe it'll create a nuisance arising from the emission of odor, dust, gas, noise, vibration, smoke, heat, or glare. I don't believe it'll contribute to the deterioration of the neighborhood or downgrade property values. In fact, you're making a substantial investment into the neighborhood, which I think is a good thing for all of the surrounding properties. I believe it's compatible with existing surrounding structures and uses, and that you'll have adequate control of behavior both inside and outside the premises. Therefore, I'm approving the use permit to allow a second-story addition for the Ayala Parker residence contained in application PL 180176. Thank you. My mic cut off? We're now moving backwards on the agenda to agenda item number 6. This is a request for a variance to reduce the required separation requirements for a medical marijuana dispensary, the requirements from a residential use, and also a child care facility for 8611 South Priest Drive. Ms. Stovall.
Good evening. My name is Karen Stovall, Senior Planner. This variance request is for the property at 8611 South Priest Drive. The property is zoned PCC1. The subject site is located within a commercial condominium complex north of the northeast corner of Priest and Warner. The applicant is requesting the reduction of 2 medical marijuana dispensary separation requirements. The first one is to reduce the separation between a dispensary and a residential use from 1,320 feet to 890 feet. And the second is to reduce the separation between a dispensary and a child care facility from 1,500 feet to 1,430 feet. To provide some background on this project, the Planning Division approved a use acceptance request, which is basically zoning clearance for the use in December 2015 for Natural Herbal Remedies, which was a dispensary that was proposed at the same center and in the same suite as the subject application. That dispensary never opened, and the 2015 approval is now void. Revisions to the zoning code as it pertains to medical marijuana uses were made twice in 2015 and then again in May of 2017. Some of those changes included increased separation requirements between marijuana uses and other land uses. In August 2017, the owner filed a use acceptance request for Park Dispensary, and after review of that request, the Planning Division denied that application. It was determined that the site did not meet the separation requirements from a residential use or from a child care facility.
From the revised code?
Yes, the
from
code
ordinance.
that was effective, adopted in May of 2017.
Right, okay.
The denial of that Park Dispensary request was appealed to the Board of Adjustment, and in October 2017, the board upheld that denial, so Park Dispensary was not permitted to open. The applicant is now requesting the 2 variances before you tonight to reduce the separation requirements and allow a dispensary in this suite. A neighborhood meeting was not required for this application, but following public notification for the hearing, which included posting of the site and mailing of postcards, staff received 1 letter of opposition to the request, and that was provided to you at the study session. And as Mr. Abrahamson noted, he received 1 phone call in opposition this afternoon.
Okay.
I'd like to briefly go over the approval criteria as they apply to this case. The first is that there is a special circumstance applicable to the property. The applicant claims that the 2015 approval of Natural Herbal Remedies is a special circumstance. A copy of that 2015 approval letter was included in the attachments to the staff report. And in reviewing the stipulations of that approval, the first one requires first that the applicant submit an application to the Arizona Department of Health Services within 60 calendar days of the approval in order to receive a dispensary certificate for that location, and also that any person or business other than those identified herein must file a new application to determine compliance with zoning regulations. The 2017 submittal for Park Dispensary was made by both a different applicant and a different business, which is one of the reasons a new application was necessary in 2017 in the first place. The new use acceptance request failed to comply with the code in place at the time of submittal. So it was determined that the site is non-compliant, and any new application for the subject site would also be non-compliant. In our view, there is no special circumstance applicable to the property. The second criteria is that the strict application of the code would deprive the property of privileges enjoyed by other properties. All use acceptance requests for medical marijuana facilities are reviewed under the code in place at the time of application submittal, regardless of previous approvals on the site. The process used to review the application for park dispensary is no different than the way any other dispensary is reviewed, so the property has not been deprived of privileges enjoyed by other properties. The third criteria is that the requested adjustment shall not constitute granting of special privileges. The condition tied to that 2015 approval for natural herbal remedies were not met, and that approval is now void. If the two variances before you tonight are approved and the applicant is permitted to open a dispensary that does not comply with the separation requirements, it would constitute a grant of special privileges. Lastly, the variance may not be granted if the special circumstances are self-imposed. As I stated before, there are no special circumstances applicable to the site, and zoning clearance granted to a previous applicant does not run with the land and is not transferable to other businesses. Based on the information submitted by the applicant and review of these criteria, staff is recommending denial of the requested variances. However, if you approve the variances, there are two stipulations listed in the staff report that we would recommend be attached to an approval. And with that, I'm happy to answer any questions.
Okay, thank you. No, I think your presentation was really thorough, and I appreciate the chronology of events related to this case.
Hello, my name is Jessica Sarkissian from the Planning Center in Tempe, and I just have a copy which I would provide to staff, and I'll provide you just so you have it in front of you, a copy of the May 2017 ordinance revision from the city, as well as the project file in May of 2017, and just a copy of the PowerPoint I'll be making for
Okay.
you.
Thank you.
So thank you again for hearing us. Is there a clicker, or how does this work? Okay. Again, my name is Jessica with the Planning Center, and I'm here representing the applicant on this case PL 180173. And I just wanted to clarify what we are here for is separate from what was done before. And I just wanted to clarify also with staff, this is probably the process that should have occurred first. We recognize that the zoning clearance letter could not have been, it was the first step. So here we are for, thank you, is the variance for the first process to then, under the current owners, get the next step, get the next zoning clearance letter, which would be part of the step. So here you can see the site location on the map further out, and then zooming in here, you can see it's Warner and Priest. You have some commercial around it, industrial, you have Honeywell, very clear. The site information that Karen went over is a 1,500 square foot commercial condominium zoned in the PCC-1 district. The zoning clearance letter for medical marijuana facility by the City of Tempe in 2015 to Natural Herbal Remedies Dispensary building permits and C of O were issued in November 2016 to this suite location with those building permits. They did receive those. The City of Tempe zoning code was revised in May 2017, which we all agree upon, increasing the separation requirements of the medical marijuana facilities to 1,500 for the license.
Can I stop you for just a moment? So in 2015, Natural Herbal Remedies got their permits, they got everything, they had a C of O, but they never opened, correct?
The Natural Herbal Remedies received the zoning verification, the zoning code compliance letter, and then either them or the current owner, they were going through the process of receiving the building permits for the tenant improvements required by the state of Arizona for a medical marijuana dispensary and the C of O. Both of those were approved, but they were not listed under a specific owner name. They were addressed to the site location versus the owner.
Okay.
So they did not open. There was discussions with the lease and the tenant at the time, the dispensary trying to go in. They could not come to an agreement. They did also, they mentioned, go through the Arizona certificate process to get inspection for the facility to then open, but negotiations with the lease fell through, and so it was halted at the time because they could not agree upon leasing terms.
Okay. So the TIs, interior, they weren't
Everything is
built
done.
out?
Everything is done.
Everything is done? So
Yes.
that was all done at risk, essentially?
It was, no, it was done prior to the 2017 code update.
Okay.
And so then the city revised that update, the code, like we mentioned in 2017, increasing those separation distances to the 1,500 and the 1,320 for a parcel solely devoted to residential use. And the new zoning clearance letter sought under Park in August of 2017, as she mentioned, was denied based on the new separation distances. So which is why we were seeking those two variances to those separation distances, which were devoted for residential use to 890. And this is only for this site, as you know, this is specific to the site, and from the child care facility of 1430. And no changes to this property or the surrounding uses have occurred since the 2015 approval of the previous dispensary owner. No new child care, new residential uses. This is the same exact location and surrounding vicinity as everything else. But again, we're not asking for the transfer certificate in this variance. That would be the next process for us. This is the surrounding zoning of the property. It is a compatible zoning for a dispensary by the code. It is exactly what the city would like to see, most generally, with the employment, commercial, office. It meets all the other criteria you would typically see of something like this. It's perfect. And then this is the distances that we're discussing right here on the code is, of course, as the crow flies, straight line distance. So currently, we're now at 1,430 feet from the daycare facility, which is in the Lifetime Fitness, which just for project history, a Lifetime Fitness is not required to have a child care license by state law. But they did so because there were some other dispensaries and when everything was going crazy that were trying to get into the Emerald Center, which is across the street. And so their way of preventing it was to create a license for their child care. And then the separation from the San Sonoma apartments to the south, which is actually a mixed-use zoning, but just parceled out and never developed as such.
So the deviation you're asking for, if you can go back, you're asking for the 1,500 to be collapsed to 1,430, and then also the 1,320 to be collapsed to 890.
Correct.
Okay.
Where previously it was 1,320 for childcare and 500 for residential. And this is just something that we picked up in the case history, because there is so much case history on this, is that in December of 2015, when the previous zoning clearance letter was approved, the nearest childcare facility listed was at 3,640 feet, 47 feet. At this time, the license was in place for the Lifetime Fitness. However, it was, which would have made it incompliant at the time, but it was not recognized by the city as an actual child care facility. And then the neighborhood outreach, we just wanted to state that it was not required, but we did mail out our own personal letters with a site plan to the neighbors of 600 feet, just so we could get any kind of interaction. We didn't receive any. We did, obviously the city, of course, received some. So. And then as far as, there we go. As far as the buildings, I feel like I skipped one here. No. The buildings in the facility, this is just the different types of owners, users in the facility. The areas in blue that are highlighted are users that close between 5 and 6 p.m. And this area is very much a patient-type care center, health and wellness. There's counselors, there's dental facilities, there's different things for personal use in here. And then on the fringe, you also have the other uses that stay open later. You have a restaurant, you have Dunkin' Donuts, you have all kinds of different things, and a salon. This is a similar, we feel that this site in general is similar to a CVS Walgreens pharmacy, and that is only for medicinal uses. All these other, you can see here, you have CVS's and Walgreens. They are all later hours of operation. This site would operate from 8 to 8 as required by the city code. And then here these were the previous approvals. You can see that they weren't issued specifically to natural herbal remedies. They were specifically to the location, certificate of occupancy, and building approvals, which were signed off by the city. I wanted to actually bring your attention to, and I wasn't able to get it into the PowerPoint quick enough, but in your packet that I gave you for the PowerPoint, we have some just general information in terms of the, if you don't have it, of the different dispensaries around and what the property values for the surrounding area. Do you have it? She has it. Can I use that? Thank you.
And what is the distance from the nearest, from the closest dispensary?
It is over the requirement, so it meets all those separations.
No, I know it meets it, but by how much? It's not like 5 miles away,
I want to say it's
right?
around 2.1,
2 miles?
something like that. But just as a reference.
Do you have that, Karen? I'm
Yes.
sorry, Ms. Stovall.
So the nearest one is at Kyrene and Elliott, and it's about 1.25 miles away.
1.25 miles,
Yeah.
okay.
A little
Thank you.
under 1.25.
Okay.
This is just some data we wanted to show. I know it's not part of the 4 findings, but in some areas they like to see this, especially with neighbors concerned. Here we have examples of property values surrounding a dispensary over the past 5 years for certain ones that are active, showing that they do not decline, whether residential or commercial in use. These are based on the full cash value from the Maricopa County's Assessor's Office. And so here is Harvest Tempe, and you can see in your packet, you can see probably better, but we have each parcel highlighted according to the chart where it was 5 years ago and where it is today. The average was, the lowest increase was over $50,000, and some of them are much over $700,000.
But wait, you're not suggesting that the dispensary contributed to an increase in
No,
property
I'm
values?
stating
You're
that
just
it
saying
followed the
it's
natural
not.
trajectory of property value
Okay.
increases. There was no, it did not contribute to a decrease during that
Okay,
time.
perfect.
And the same with SWC. And territory. And then finally, the Patient Alternative Relief Center. And these properties are all adjacent. They're different criteria is what we put in there for residential apartments for commercial properties. And then here's where I wanted to get into the comment of believing that it was not the intent of what was done in 2017. Prior to May 2017, the code update, the site was, and not the site was, not the dispensary, not natural herbal remedies, the site was compliant with all separation distance and zoning category requirements. Therefore, the site dispensary received the authorization to proceed. It is actually in the arrow, you can see it is noted where it is at. This is when on the May 2017 project file that was given to council. The May 2017 code update did do the following, which she mentioned. It did remove the restriction of 2 dispensaries, but then it increased separation distance requirements, probably to eliminate the concern about removing that 2 dispensary requirement. So in the May 25th, 2017 council project file, which I gave it to you also a copy of, you can see the arrows highlighted here. And it clearly is showing it as a dispensary. It doesn't say the Natural Herbal Remedies Dispensary. It doesn't have a specific name to it. It is shown as a dispensary. It is shown on the separation requirements for medical marijuana dispensary there. It is shown on the separation requirements for cultivation. It is shown on separation requirements for medical marijuana, other cultivation, and for market requirements. It's repeatedly shown, and here you can see that there were 3 dispensary locations. Does this do it? There are 3 dispensary locations that were shown in place during the May 2017 hearing. Those are still shown on there. The 2 that are existing on there that are now, because they themselves don't meet the residential separation requirement distance. So those 2 facilities are still in operation because they are operating under the same original name. Just due to market conditions with leasing agreements and things like that, this dispensary would also be allowed to operate if it had the same dispensary name and same owners. But since
If they had opened correctly.
If they had opened, they were going through that process. But if they had changed names and they were still open, that would require another zoning clearance letter, which would be then denied based on separation requirements. So Those are grandfathered. This one would be still grandfathered to open because it followed all the steps, it made it the requirements of the stipulations of the earlier cases. And because of the simple name change, they are not allowed to open. So we are seeking 2 variances of a separation from a parcel solely devoted to residential use to reduce to 890 feet just for this site, and a separation from a licensed child care facility to be reduced to 1,430 feet for only this site. So in our 4 findings, I wanted to go over with you, is that the special circumstances is that the intervening code modifications in 2017 increased the separation requirements. And the site is now unable to operate as a dispensary, although it has been purchased, permitted, and previously constructed as a dispensary prior to the 2017 code changes. The site was previously viewed as an acceptable location under any user, natural remedies, herbal, local joint, whatever, prior to the latest code update in 2017. Nothing about the site has changed. We want to utilize the site for the same use it was approved for and previously and is shown on the draft separation map requirements in 2017. It's not an application for a new site. We're not asking for variances for a brand new location within somewhere else. It was already discussed and shown on maps previously again and again and again since 2015 as a dispensary location. So this was a previously approved and accepted as an appropriate site, which is why we keep referencing that 2015 code. We're not trying to use that clearance letter. We're just trying to state that it has always been intended to be used as a dispensary site. It's always been there, and we intend to just continue to do it as such. And the city always had acknowledged it in their maps and discussions that it was there. And the burdensome effect is there will be a significant economic impact for the applicants after investing in the site as a dispensary, which had been approved by the city's 2015 use acceptance letter, because subsequent building permits, certificate of occupancy, and the constructed dispensary in November 2016 further assured that the owner to its ability to function as a good site location for the dispensary. In addition, the owner also went through litigation at the Maricopa County Courts with the condo association in regards to stating that they should be allowed to authorize and have a medical marijuana dispensary there, and they also, in 2017, and they also won that case. So they've gone through significant avenues to make sure that they made sure they still had entitlement to this site to operate what they had originally purchased for, what they thought it was still good for, what the city had talked about, what it was on other maps for, and they just want to go through the proper procedures to get the zoning clearance letter approved under their name. We feel there's no special privilege because there's other medical marijuana facilities that were approved with the city. As we mentioned, there were 3 at the time in there before the 27 code change that are able to operate today as a non-conforming use. The use was previously allowed under the previous code and approved. There's been no new daycare, no new residential uses to infringe closer. The site, as we mentioned, would be allowed to operate as a natural remedies if they just use that name. But a simple change in the ownership has therefore made the site unable to develop as previously used and intended. The new dispensary will meet the same requirements and follow the state of Arizona operation procedures. In addition to being previously agreed upon, as we mentioned, with the condo association, there's also an agreement between the owner of the condo association themselves that the suite can never be utilized as a recreational facility should it ever be approved by voters. Of course, it's not currently, so it would always just be medical marijuana. And the situation is not self-imposed because they were incurred because of a change in the code, in the separation distance in the zoning code after city approval in the facility in 2015, and construction was completed in 2016. These are just examples of what one of the facilities looks like inside. It is very clean, everything's taken care of, everything's organized, and this is the staff at one of the other dispensaries. So also, before we go to the takeaways, I wanted to show you another map that was inside your packet. And rather than the separation of as the crow flies, we have a map in there as far as the walking distance to the facility. It should be on there. Oh, here it is. So, despite the 890 and the 1,400 feet, if you were to walk from the site to the front door of the Lifetime Fitness, it would be 2,646 feet. If you were to walk from the medical marijuana dispensary to the entrance of the San Sonoma Apartments, it would be 2,113 feet. The San Sonoma is walled off. There are no accesses other ways. There's also a Circle K gas station, and I presume there's probably a liquor store in there as well, that is in front of the San Sonoma Apartments along Warner Road. So for the takeaways, we want to just reemphasize that the site was previously viewed as an acceptable location for any user. So it just happened to be the timing of when it was submitted, when it makes it unacceptable. If it was submitted in April, it would have been acceptable. But you know, it changed it. So now any natural remedies park or et cetera prior to last code update in 2017. And this goes for an admission, and I want to just point this out also because I know there's some other dispensaries in here as well. This also goes to those other dispensaries. If they were to change name, board of directors changed, so their names changed or LLC changes, they would have to come in for a new zoning clearance letter. Those prior dispensaries that were a part of those three, they are now non-compliant. They're grandfathered in, and they would also be denied because of the separation requirements. They would also be seeking residential separation requirements. I didn't look in to see the school or anything else, but those type of things would be incurred. And I think it was something that was unintentional when the code update came in place. It was something that they were trying to allow. They were worried about adding more than 2 dispensaries through the city of Tempe, and they wanted to make sure that they didn't just have a complete influx. Because of what happened with the medical marijuana dispensaries, there was also some issues that came in with the law in terms of CHAs, and everybody got their CHAs. However, nobody realized that some of the dispensaries were coming in and just putting a location in place and holding it because they knew after a year the CHA would be gone and they could move it to anywhere in the city or state, really. And so the one thing I also want to take away is that this is similar to any other type of use. For instance, a liquor use permits, they go through the state, they have their certificates, and those are moved between locations or sold off as needed to different locations because there's only a certain number. And that's very similar to what is with the medical marijuana dispensaries. So there will be a significant economic impact for the applicant after improving, obtaining the site, which has been previously documented as a suitable location to provide a dispensary. On the maps from the city, it did not say Natural Herbal Remedies Dispensary. It did not say Park Dispensary. It had a dot on the map, and it said that. And then a simple change in ownership made the site unable to operate as previously used. Something that's not changed. It was acceptable just a few years ago. Nothing about the facility has changed. The development around the area, the development conditions, the ownerships of the surrounding properties, everything is the same. And the variances for separation requirements are not self-imposed because they were incurred as a result of the change in code and increased the separation distance requirements. It just happened. And I just want to again say, I don't know that the council or people that were reviewing it, when they saw the revised maps for the city with the 3 dots on there, they were stated on there. They didn't remove those dots because now they were non-compliant. They left them there. And to me, as someone that would be looking into a new property, I understand that I need to go in for the zoning verification letter and all that stuff, but it was on the map again and again and again and again. It did not look like it was an accident. So.
And is this a map in the zoning and development code?
You actually have it in there. It's part of the.
No, I know, I see it, but I don't know what it's.
It was part of the project file for council in May of 2017. This is what. It was an exhibit. Yes, it's an exhibit. I could not find anything that states, because there's nothing that's going to state you're approved here, you're approved here, you're approved here,
Right.
because they have to come through at a site-by-site basis and go through the state certification processes. So.
But what I'm getting at is, yes, it's a city created document, but it was an exhibit for a public hearing, much the same this is an exhibit for a public hearing.
Right.
So it doesn't have the effect of like a general plan land use map.
If it had the effect of we're allowed to do this, we wouldn't have to do this right now.
Right.
But this is why we're going through the variance process. We're going through 2 variances for separation distances. We're not trying to get a different zoning interpretation letter appeal to change step 1 or anything like that. We want to go through that process. We're going through everything else. It just needs these 2 separation distances, I believe 70 feet for the daycare and I forget what the other number is, but for the residential.
For the residential.
Right, which when the residential, I put it in there, when the residential increase, it was 184% increase in separation distance, which is huge, whereas the daycare, I believe, was closer to like 16%. So it kind of just wiped everything out. When you look at the map in here, that the example map with the residential, and it shows the residential buffer, it just wipes the entire city out, basically, which could be also another intent, but they had previously approved dispensaries that are still operating.
Right, as legal non-conforming.
As legal non-conforming.
Right.
And so I know there's some who want to speak from those dispensaries, but the thing is that this could happen if they changed anything themselves.
Okay.
So, and we'll be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. I guess my biggest thing that I want to understand is, because we have two very significant dates here in the case history, the 2015 granting of the use acceptance letter, and then the December 2017 passage of the new ordinance.
And
there's quite a bit of time in between there. You know, there's the entire year of 2016 when this dispensary, for whatever reason, private party leases or whatever, was not able to be up and running within that time. If they were, in my view, we wouldn't be here, because they would be legal non-conforming exactly like those other ones. So,
so clarification, the 2015 approval was December 22nd, 2015. And during 2016, the middle of the year, is about when the lease negotiations started to fall through, which is then the other owner came in and started to take over, which is when the building permits were approved in November of 2016. And so, and there was a lawsuit going on also with the condo association to ensure that they had the right to open in that location, because the association, you'll hear from them as well, was having issues. And so there was an agreement made, and then in November 20th of 2017, that lawsuit was settled through Maricopa County courts with the condo association, stating that we were allowed to go in there. And so all this stuff has been going on, and there's been a lawsuit, and so that's when all this, I'm guessing it got lost in the paperwork in terms of the hearing in May.
Okay.
Basically. So.
The hearing in May, but the action was in December.
The ordinance that changed, I'm stating. The ordinance that changed in May of 2017. Right. Okay. They were in the middle of the lawsuit going on.
Okay. Thank you. As we did in the previous case, I called to the public. I have a number of cards up here. And then afterwards, you'll be given the opportunity to come up and discuss any issues. So I have a number of cards here. They are in no certain order. And we're going to be using, just when we have a number of people up here, are you ready to use the timer? Okay, we give everyone 3 minutes to speak for or against the item. And then if you have a presentation that's longer than that, and I believe I was told that we do have a neighborhood PowerPoint, some of your allies, so to speak, can donate their time to you to allow that to go over. But so what we allow people to do is pool their time. You know, if you have a 10-minute presentation, then 3 of you need to say, okay, I'm ceding my time to this individual so that they can give that presentation. Because given the number here today, I know I have 12 cards. We just can't indulge, 10 minutes, 10 minutes, 10 minutes. We would, never get out of here. So first card I have is from a Brian Bailey. You have a minute left, and when it turns red, you need to wrap it up.
Okay. Brian Bailey, Phoenix, Arizona. A correction on the hours of operation to Adobe Behavioral Counseling, which was listed there. It was listed as ending around 5 o'clock.
Okay, can you hold on for a sec? Is his mic working? I'm having a hard time. There we go.
Okay. Facilities operation, Adobe Behavioral Counseling. I'm the spouse of the operator of that. She operates the facility until around last patient normally about 3 to 4 nights out of the week leaves around 7 o'clock. She normally occupies does her after-hours work billing and forms. Typically, sometimes on those nights leaves around 8 o'clock.
Okay,
That's all.
okay, thank you. I have a Chandler Travis.
Good evening, Chandler Travis, Phoenix, Arizona. Our firm represents the Warner Village Office Condominium Association and its board of directors. The property that's being proposed for the use variance for this medical marijuana dispensary is located within the condominium association. As you've heard, they are seeking a variance as to the required separation requirements for a medical marijuana dispensary under the May 2017 ordinance. I'd like to say timing is everything. They're trying to recreate the timing of events. The events are Natural Herbal Remedies did obtain a medical marijuana license as then allowed for under the City of Tempe ordinance. Because of issues between Natural Herbal Remedies and the property owner Image Productions here, Natural Herbal Remedies elected to never open that dispensary at this location, and that is the fact. In fact, Image Productions and Natural Herbal Remedies ended up in litigation in regards to their business arrangements between the two of them. I think the hearing officer noted it well when Image Productions went in there and did these tenant improvements. It was done at their own risk. They weren't the holder of the medical marijuana license certificate from the state of Arizona. Natural Herbal Remedies was. Natural Herbal Remedies was the entity that's able to operate a medical marijuana dispensary, not Image Productions. Again, timing's everything. 2017, May, City of Tempe's council changes the ordinance, changes the required distance requirements. Not until August of 2017 do we have Park Dispensary, a whole separate entity. This is not just a simple name change as they'd like the hearing officer to believe. It's a whole separate entity. It has no connection, no relations, nothing that I'm aware of connecting it to Natural Herbal Remedies. That application was denied, as you've heard. Now we're here for this variance. The association requests that this variance be denied. The requirements of the May 2017 zoning ordinance are clear. The staff recommendation is to deny the variance. We have a child care facility at Lifetime Fitness where there's plenty of children present. That's within the required distance as set forth by the ordinance. And we have a residential use, apartments, within the required separation distance. As some background, they mentioned, yes, the association and Image Productions were in a lawsuit in Superior Court. The association and most of its members have not been in favor of a medical marijuana dispensary ever being utilized as one of its condominium units there. They have great concerns regarding the additional traffic that will be coming to and from this dispensary, the longer hours of operation in comparison to the other professional uses, such as CPAs, optometrists, that would be going on, and also the security plan that has been proposed in connection with the operation of a medical marijuana dispensary. Again, this is not, the association requests that the hearing officer deny this variance request, enforce the May 2017 ordinance, which we're all living under. We can't go back in time. We have to utilize what's in place at this point in time. And unfortunately, timing is everything. Their time, if they wanted to open up another dispensary, not named Natural Herbal Remedies, should have been done before May of 2017. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Next one is from William Bishop.
Good afternoon, hearing officer. Thank you very much. I'm on the board of the Warner Village Condominium Association. I was the president of the association during a lot of the relevant times that things happened with regard to the condominium association and the history of what happened with this medical marijuana dispensary and the prior one. Just like to add a couple things to what Mr. Travis said. and emphasize that this company did make the TIs with risk in mind. We had denied Natural Herbal Remedies request for a variance of the CCNRs because the CCNR said it was for professional use only. So at the time that this was all going down and Natural Herbal Remedies had its permission from the city, they did not have permission from the Condo Association. We said in no specific terms, we said no. And for a long period of time with Image Productions, we also said no with regard to that. So they were very much on notice that we considered a violation of the CCNRs. They were a retail operation. They paid retail taxes, et cetera. The association, the area that you saw the maps of, are divided into two different segments. One is the professional offices, which is a different HOA, for lack of a better term, and the retail, which wraps around it. They are moving into the professional offices. CCNRs provides this to be a professional, or a professional type of an entity. So basically, they can't really backdoor on Natural Herbal Remedies saying they were approved, therefore we should be approved, because Natural Herbal Remedies, one of the big barriers that they ran into is the violation of the CCNR. So, you know, the code is there for a reason. The rules are there for a reason. I think Mr. Travis is correct with regard to the timing. So this isn't something where they walked in and they thought that everything was laid out for them and all they had to do was basically piggyback on the prior approval, because the HOA had not given approval until later on down the road, which is a whole different set of circumstances that I won't get into right now. But, and Mr. Chandler Travis, the attorney, is correct that the majority of the condo association owners are very concerned. They are not in support of this. I think there's only 2 of the owners that support it, but one of them actually being the owner of the particular facility. And then the other one, all the other owners were against it with regard to the most recent votes. It is close to a daycare facility. It is close to a living facility. There are very close marijuana institutions around, or dispensaries. It's not that this has to be here. Amongst the lawyers, the doctors, the accountants, the architects, the counselors, the companies that make up the professional offices, it doesn't fit in within the particular parameters of what we're dealing with here.
Okay, thank you. Jack Wilborn.
Hello, my name is Jack Wilborn. Good evening, Hearing Officer McDonald. Thanks for having me. My name is Jack Wilborn. I live in Peoria, Arizona.
Okay.
I'm a speaker for a group called LEAP, which is Law Enforcement Action Partnership. We all have law enforcement backgrounds, and our main reason that we come out and speak is for public safety issues, which should be a high list on your priority. And I'd like to point, sorry about that.
Okay.
I'd like to point out that initially dispensaries, all the people working there, the dispensary employees, they call them bud tenders, but they're called dispensary associates, I believe, and our agents. And each one of them submits 2 fingerprint cards and a photograph for their background check for the state and the federal government. The security, all these places I've been to have a security guard at the front door. They have cameras outside, cameras inside. I don't know of any other business that has that kind of protection for their patients in the area they're at, which is very good. Patients, about 80% of them are chronic pain patients. A high number of them cannot smoke and require a concentrate or some other ability to use it. They all are based on and have a government ID, so the state knows exactly who is going in and out of these. When they get on the computer and buy something, the state knows what you're buying and from who. And so these are the kinds of things that make this a very secure operation. It also, all the persons are tracked, as we know, but the state knows. And I know of no dispensary that allows consumption on the property or on the premises. You know, all those are banned. You get your product, you go home. In June of 2017, the Harvard Business Review put out a thing that basically California had a position where Los Angeles shut down a lot of dispensaries, and that gave these economic groups the ability to go in, see where the crime was, and so forth. Their resolve was that dispensaries cause a much more secure atmosphere. And they found this in all over California, which is where they did the study, and in other areas in other states where they had the ability, but mostly it was California. And these were set where a dispensary and 1,000 feet around them was based. But the crime rate dropped tremendously. I don't remember exact numbers, but it was basically dropped by 2/3 of the crime when the dispensary was removed. Crime went up by 2/3. In your case here, this area, oh, I'm sorry, I'm running out of time. Basically, what I wanted to say was that this area is very good for people coming in and doing what are larceny types crimes, which is criminal damage and theft from vehicle. These are the kind of crimes that dispensaries suppress. And the economic group of Harvard estimates that these are advantageous to the city for about $30,000 worth of social benefits a year based on suppression of larceny.
Okay, thank you. As you noted,
questions?
we are out of time. No, I
Okay,
don't.
sorry.
I thank you for the information, but I do want to remind everyone, we're not here this evening to talk about the value of medical marijuana. You know,
I didn't think I was talking about that.
well,
I was talking about the safety issue.
well, I was going to say, or neither are we here to evaluate a use permit, which would speak directly to the operational detail that you were providing to us. This is a very specific type of land use matter. It's a variance, and so I appreciate the information. But again, I just want to make note that we're here to talk about a variance and not a use permit, and therefore operational criteria doesn't really apply to this evaluation. But thank you.
Okay, thank you very much.
I have Daniel Schweiker.
Good evening, Hearing Officer Daniel Schweiker, Scottsdale, Arizona. I'm here representing two businesses within 300 feet of the proposed applicant for the variance who are opposing it.
Okay.
I have written objections if you'd like me to hand them to you.
Sure. I will add them to the file. You know, I can't read them verbatim, but I will look at them and then I'll make sure that they're part of the file.
Okay, as long as they're part of the file, and since you have a lot of people speaking, I don't think I necessarily need to stand up there and read them.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
Thank you. Yeah, what I'll do if you want to stand back is the first one is signed from Eugene Lupario. Opposed, he has a business located at 960 West Elliott Road, and for a variety of reasons, in fact, he actually goes through the criteria for a variance, but the upshot is that he is a neighboring property owner and he is opposed to the application. The second one is from a Rima Peters, who I believe is a dentist, DDS. Yes. Again, opposing the application for the variance. He has a property located at 8675 South Priest Drive, Suite 101, and again, within 300 feet, and opposed to the application due to the proximity of his business to the proposed dispensary. So thank you for these. You can add whatever you'd like within the time limit allowed, but these are part of the record.
Yeah, you have a lot of speakers, but both of them go through and they list the variance criteria and how this does not meet any of the variance criteria. So we just wanted to get that entered into the record.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Brandy Williams.
Hi Hi there. My agenda here is much different than a lot of the people in the room here today. My son Logan Simpson is an 8-year-old boy who has many life debilitating diseases, and cannabis very much keeps him alive. I didn't understand why there weren't very many dispensaries easy for me to access as a parent until I came here today. And it's very upsetting to see a lot of people in our community oppose this when it's saving so many people's lives. We are a medical cannabis state. We do not allow adult use. There are hundreds of children who need access to this medicine to keep them alive. My son's life is not guaranteed. He can die at any time for seizures. And as a mom, it is very frustrating when I have to drive my sick child 2 hours across the state because no one's allowing these operations to open, where in a city, I mean, I can't move out of the city because my son needs accesses to services, hospitals, and therapies. It's very frustrating as a parent when I have to drive 2 miles or 2 hours out of the city limits to get this life-saving medicine for my child. So again, my agenda is a little bit different than the business owners that are opposed here today. I'm here trying to keep my son alive. I do represent over 400 moms in the Maricopa County area who also need cannabis to keep their children alive. And I cannot stress to you how much of a burden it is to drive your child that far when they're sick. And if a product doesn't work out, then I have to, again, put my sick child into the car and drive out of the city limits again to find something else, when this location would literally be 9 miles away from my house. So I hope that people that are listening here today can appreciate a mother and her, the many barriers I have just to keep my child alive.
Okay, thank you. I do appreciate that. I did want to note, I got a clarification from staff earlier that there is a dispensary within 1.25 miles of this dispensary. So I don't know where you're driving to, but
so not all cannabis is created equal.
Okay.
Some grow houses use chemical nutrients and things to you know, grow their plants, and that's not something that I can use as a patient. This particular dispensary in question has been the only dispensary that I have trusted with the quality of product. Many parents in my group, I'm the director of Moms Advocating Medical Marijuana for Autism. I lobby at the Capitol. I have gained support from many conservative leaders and Democratic leaders in our agenda. And not all cannabis is created equally.
I
And
didn't
this
know that.
dispensary, actually, I have many moms that go into the dispensary who are in financial crisis that come out with medical cannabis at no cost to them because of this medical dispensary.
Okay.
So they have been a huge help to many families in our community, over 400 members of our community in the autism community and seizure community.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Sean Simpson?
That would be my husband, and my son needed to go eat his special diet meal, so I think I did a good job of speaking.
Okay, I believe so too, and I will just say, I can read his note into the record. Sean Simpson said, my son's seizures are controlled by cannabis along with his symptoms from autism. It's important to have as many options because his is very strain specific. That's what you were talking about earlier. There are currently, or there's closer, I guess the ones that you need are outside of Maricopa County. So thank you.
Except for this one, this is the dispensary I can trust the quality.
Okay, okay, thank you. Bob Chilton?
Thank you, Hearing Officer McDonald. My name is Bob Chilton. I live in the city of Scottsdale. I'm the co-founder of Rain Strategies, which is a professional management company in the cannabis industry. We manage cultivation sites, kitchens, and dispensaries. We primarily specialize in turnkey operations. We do distressed assets, and we do court-appointed receiverships. So we're well versed in the operations of the company. Similar to other businesses, the cannabis industry has to obtain licenses. They have to comply with city and regulatory bodies, such as the City of Tempe business license. We pay state sales tax, many other regulatory bodies. But the cannabis industry is different. We have other regulatory bodies that drive us, and we must be compliant with. The Arizona Department of Health Services is the primary one, which is a PowerPoint if you can get it up there. But we also comply with the Arizona Medical Marijuana Act. We pay state sales taxes. We pay our federal taxes. The bottom line, cannabis complies just like any other company that would be in this complex or in this area, but it's held to a higher standard. It has to do things better. It has to be more compliant with more regulatory bodies. I touched on the Arizona Department of Health Services. We comply with the Arizona Medical Marijuana Act, Food and Health and Safety. We have everything that complies with the product, how it's tracked, how it's sold, additional software. There we go. There we go. There we go. Thank you very much. We have all sorts of additional compliances that we must have as a business. But we're in the health and wellness industry. That's what we're all about. We provide medicine. Okay? So we're held to a higher standard by the state. We're held to a higher standard by the federal government. Okay? As the prior speaker talked about, we provide many things to the local community. A dispensary provides employment and career opportunities. In this facility alone, we will supply over 30 full-time jobs. We're going to supply contracts for support companies and local contractors. We're going to have a security company. We will have cleaning companies. We'll have various companies that are going to come in. So we're providing opportunities for the local area. We provide security for the local businesses. It was noted by one of the prior speakers that it will be open in the evening after CPAs. That is a good thing for the community. That's a good thing for the project. Eyes on the street, businesses that are open are good for the community. We'll pay our taxes. We'll pay all the programs. But the bottom line is this business is good for the community. We bring jobs, we bring income, we bring stability to the neighborhood. At this point, I'd like to turn it over. There's another speaker that comes up to talk about our community outreach programs. I'd like to deed the rest of my time to her.
Okay, is that Jennifer?
Yes, ma'am.
Go? Okay.
Thank you very much, Speaker.
Thank you.
Can you hear me?
Excuse me?
Can you hear me? Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you. My name's Jennifer Gote. As you met my partner, Bob Chilton, and we run Rain Strategies. We've been so blessed to have the opportunity to run a dispensary. And in doing so, we've been able to provide a lot of community support as well as create a ton of jobs in our community. We work with medical patients that have given up on, traditional medicines. They're looking for options. We deal with a lot of children. We sponsor cancer patients. We sponsor epileptic patients. We work with low-income families. We work our hardest to provide the safest, best medicine we possibly can for these people. And as Brandy had said, there aren't a lot of people that do testing and make sure that this medicine is clean, safe medicine for their family members or even for themselves. So we try to go above and beyond when we provide the medicine for people. We go through and we find the best strains that go with the best qualifying conditions. We have word of mouth. We talk to patients about what's working for their qualifying conditions so that we can pass on information to others. It's just all about the impact in the community. The community is a big deal. Like I said, we pay our state taxes, we pay our city taxes. We provide an outlet for these patients to find what they need. A lot of our neighbors in our other locations love having us there because we provide a sense of informal surveillance for their businesses. Because after hours, that's when things happen. So we have cameras, we have security guards on property. It's very, very safe. So, I mean, the bottom line, it's a piece of paper is what you guys are arguing about. You know, a piece of paper said it was Natural Remedies or if it's Park Dispensary. It doesn't matter. The location should still be able to be used for what it needs to be used for. It's just a piece of paper. It's a name. Thank you.
Thank you. Michael Calisi?
Good afternoon. I'm one of the, I'm Michael Calisi, one of the business owners within that complex, and I'd like to voice my opinions on the issue here. We've heard from the applicant, we've heard from other speakers bringing up all of quality of life and benefits to the city. All is a way to subvert the issue that, based on the law, based on current law, based on the law when they filed their application, this facility did not comply with the city's requirements. They tried to use as pretext lots of maps that had mistakes on them, lots of other information, property values based on assessed value, not on comparable sales, and using a period of unprecedented growth in property values within the city. All they really did is show how many options they have available within a close proximity. One with, 1.25 miles, but I think you'll find several within a distance of 5 miles. And, if you traveled from this location to that location, you would see several billboards advertising the products. If we wanted to get into a discussion, we could get into a discussion. I'd be happy to discuss about the adverse effects that many of these cities have seen. We even saw a slide talking about state and federal laws. I'd like to remind everybody that this is still an illegal product that they're looking to sell within our city. And it was determined, the ordinance were changed in 2017 based on the best information that they had at that time for what should be a suitable location and what shouldn't be a suitable location. Based on all of this, this would not be a suitable location. And everybody brought up the subject of children. As a parent, I think we have no greater obligation than to try and do whatever we can to separate our children from illegal drugs. And there is no rational reason why you would put all the children that utilize this daycare facility, which, might I remind you, is not operated during normal business hours, but could be very early in the morning, could be very late at night, and not just an ordinary facility where it's just one group of children. There might be many, many children that are in this. There is no rationale why we would put somebody who's dealing drugs, their benefit them at the expense of those children who can't come here tonight and speak for themselves. Thank you.
Thank you. I have Brittany Ballou.
Hi, good evening. My name is Brittany Bollier. I currently work at Park Dispensary. I've worked there for less than a year, and I've never worked in the medical field before. I'm from Connecticut. Over there, it's just not a thing. But it's changed my life more than I can even say. And not even just being in the industry, but actually the community and seeing how much this community appreciates and actually needs medical marijuana. I personally use it myself. I am a patient. I have debilitating pain, anxiety, and depression, which was ultimately the reason that I didn't follow the career path I planned on. I was supposed to be a police officer. I have my degree in criminal justice. I went through the whole entire process of becoming a state trooper, and my last final evaluation with my anxiety disqualified me from that position. So this dispensary, as stated, will open up jobs to people that probably can't get jobs in maybe their career path, like myself or like others. Little things disqualify you nowadays. There's too many people trying to get jobs. But in this industry, we are so open and accepting to everybody. You can have any kind of condition. You can be purple, you could have 3 noses, we don't care as long as you are passionate about the industry and selling to the patients. We want our patients to feel comfortable, and we are super open. Like Brandy said, you know, Logan comes in. We have more senior citizen and veteran patients than anything else. So for someone to say that we're just dealing drugs on the side is actually super offensive to me. But we actually do. We help these people that are not really comfortable. They come in, they've never been in a dispensary before. You know, they're used to their pharmacy, and we try to provide that for them. We want them to understand that you don't have to be smoking this. You can try this tincture. You can try all of these things. We want to give options. We're not interested in selling them on the top shelf, most expensive item. We want them to get the medication that they need, which was also stated. You know, there are other dispensaries that do the same thing, but we really, really focus on our patients and our community. We want to start doing community outreach, making sure that local people can come in and have education. We are all about patient education and learning. I find that this condominium complex that it's in would actually be ideal because of the health and wellness and because of the other people that are in there. We fit right in. There's no longer the days of the dark and dim dispensaries. That's not what this is anymore. We're no longer that. We are a business. We are just like your CVS or something like that. You can go in, you get your medication, you have a nice conversation. I know your name. I shake your hand on the way out. And like they said with security, we'll have more security all the time. Open jobs for the community to people that wouldn't be able to get these jobs. You know what I mean? Maybe they're not able to work at the CVS because they can't stand on their feet for 8 hours a day. Well, we'll take them and we'll allow them to sit down and enjoy their job and still be passionate and talk to everybody. As far as being around the Lifetime Fitness with the children, I totally understand that. I've worked in childcare my whole life as well before this, and I understand that, but we also went over the fact that the Lifetime Fitness door is more than exceeding the variance and exceeds the limit that it's supposed to be. Those Lifetime Fitnesses are gargantuan. They're like malls in themselves. I've seen them before. So the distance to when the building starts or the property line starts, and if there's even children around, I highly doubt they would even be able to see the dispensary from across the street like we saw on the maps. As far as residential goes, I do understand that as well. But again, these things were all changed when it was already approved. We already had this. We already wanted to help our patients. And the year that they've had to battle and do all of this stuff, it costs us our dispensary, and you know, we understand that. But we're just trying to change the name. We're trying to bring our patients the quality that they deserve. And I understand that there's one a minute away or a mile away, but it's not us. We're not them, and we're here for our patients, and we're here for everybody. And we want everybody to feel comfortable to come and not worry that we're going to judge them or that it's dangerous, because it's not. We are not dangerous, and we serve it.
Okay, thank you. Janet Wabel.
Good evening. I'm Tempe, Arizona resident and business owner. My office is directly adjacent to the suite in question, and we share a demising wall. I'm here to present consideration for the pressure that this business will place on our development from a traffic standpoint. We have an easement, that cross-access easement with Honeywell, and our development came in with the condition that we would share a driveway with the Honeywell staff. And when the traffic comes in and out during their shift changes, it's a tremendous amount of traffic. Our development is small, and the turns and the driveways to come into the site in question are tight. And we also have semi-trucks coming in to deliver food to the retail component. And so I'm worried about the traffic that this is going to create in our development. Our parking numbers and quantities are designed for a professional office use. I've seen the customer lines at the other medical marijuana facilities around town, and the parking is not available for the amount of customers that they hope to attract. Our parking spaces will not be available to us, our customers, our clients, and we pay for these spaces. And it's going to be troublesome to have to go out and look for our parking space or find the person who is in our parking space. And that will be a disruption to our daily businesses. My staff, I'll speak for me, we have grandchildren, we have children. They come in and out of the office freely, not all the time, but they're welcome there. And so if the issue is children, we have children. And our other businesses serve children in our development. We have psychiatrists, counselors, dentists, and just regular basic family life. Kids show up at the office now and then. The demand for the use on the weekends is evidenced by the line that wraps the businesses that I've seen, and I've taken note, around the buildings, because every Friday afternoon I've counted lines, 50 to 75, sometimes 100 people standing in the heat waiting to get their product. So obviously there's a demand for the medical marijuana over the weekends. Tempe had a reason for changing the ordinance. I don't know what it is, but they had a reason, and I'm concerned about the precedent this will set for staff if they don't go by their own rules that they just set, and what's this going to do to other requests down the line. There's got to be dozens of sites like this that would like to overturn the zoning ordinance, and I just am concerned that this would create a flood of requests that you're either going to wish you never created the ordinance, or you're going to be forced to just take it down. Thank you.
Thank you. And I'm down to my last card, so if you're, and it's for Robert Cox. So if you're here to speak and you want to speak and you haven't submitted a card, go ahead and do so, because after Mr. Cox, then I'm going to close the public comment portion of the hearing and have the applicant come back up. Mr. Cox.
Thank you. Robert Cox, Arizona State University Government Relations Director. I'm here to speak on behalf of ASU in opposition to this variance. We agree with the staff that the recommendation did not approve it. It doesn't meet the requirements, and the hardship is self-imposed. Additionally, ASU participated in discussions when the Tempe City Council last considered the zoning ordinance. We expressed publicly that ASU strongly opposes the expansion of the dispensary locations within the city. This remains unchanged. There's concern, should a variance be granted, that a dangerous precedent will be set and invite multiple other requests. If there's concern over the current policy, the appropriate place for this is to be addressed at the council level. The time for this issue to have been addressed was more than 14 months ago when the issue was before the council. When the council considered and ultimately amended the zoning policy, ASU was on record for greater restrictions that were ultimately granted, as outlined in the attached letter that I'd like to submit for the record. It's actually an op-ed from President Crow talking about some of the negative effects of medical marijuana and marijuana industries in general. And with that, I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. I don't believe I have any questions of you at this time. Thank you.
Thank you.
But we will keep this as part of the public record.
Great.
For this case. And then I also was given a letter in opposition that, again, I'm not going to, oh, you can take a seat. Just because it's the last public comment I have. It's written from Tom Tate. And he, again, I'm not going to read the thing verbatim, but he's a developer of the Emerald Center, which is across the street. And he wanted me to note his letter, his adamant opposition to this variance application. So I wanted to make sure that that was part of the public record as well. So Ms. Sarkissian, if you're ready to come back up, I always give the applicants. I didn't have another card.
Oh, no, the owner.
Oh, okay.
And then I'll.
Sure, I'm sorry, I didn't have it.
Hi, I'm John Batistas. I live in Paradise Valley. I didn't think I was speaking today, so forgive my
No problem.
appearance. I just want to clarify a few things. The association, I didn't think they realized they had somebody call me, but they asked all the owners to come today to oppose this meeting. They signed an agreement with me to not have recreational marijuana in the building. As long as we did medical marijuana, they approved it, okay, voluntarily. That was the discussion up front. The only work I had done to the building is I had gutted a portion of the carpet and one wall. I had to put up a security steel fence. And by the way, the other lady that's here that just testified, she's next to me, she asked me 3 times to buy her building, and I didn't. So I think she's upset with that, but I don't want to get into that. They voluntarily agreed, so long as I gave up my right for recreational, which I'm opposed to. I have 4 kids myself. I don't believe in it. I gave it up. We had an agreement. Recreational didn't pass, and they said, forget it, deal's off. They said, oh, this person didn't move in. The person that was supposed to move in had a criminal background. They never did any investigation on her whatsoever. And bottom line is they lost in court. The judge said you had buyer's remorse, that you signed an agreement voluntarily to allow a medical marijuana dispensary. They went and opposed at the Board of Adjustment, and they're here again today to make it sound like the owners didn't want to do it. Well, at the time, Mr. Bishop, who also testified, was the person I negotiated with. I negotiated with Chandler Travis. They both entered into this agreement. He's the president of the association. So to come here today and say we didn't want to do it is dishonest, in my opinion. But more importantly, I didn't go at risk. I did for the demo of the carpet and one wall, based on also their assurances that they were going to allow this without recreational, number one. Number two, I went to the city. I got approval, which Ryan Levesque tried his best to prevent me from getting. But I got the permit. I did the work. They gave me a C of O to operate. To operate as a medical marijuana dispensary. By the way, 2 people gave me their time. So do you want them to verify?
You're the owner.
Okay, that's it. Sum up. I don't know what that means, but so. And I lost my train of thought. I apologize. I'm nervous.
You were on certificate of occupancy.
Certificate of occupancy. They were actually in the building. And
when you say they, who do you mean?
Natural Herbal Remedies was a tenant in the building.
Okay.
And bottom line is.
But not yet open for business?
Did not yet open for business, but we're ready for the final inspection. The police department had been there, approved all the security. They approved the security. They say they know it's a security issue. They approved the camera positions. We had the police department out there doing the candle lighting to make sure that that was acceptable, approved. The interior cameras, everything that was done in compliance of the CCNRs. So I went to the meeting with Ryan Levesque, and he said, you don't have to even apply because you're not going to get approved. Withdraw your application, and I have a transcript of the conversation with him. Withdraw your application and just move in, because as long as you get an ATO from the Arizona Department of Health Services, we don't care. But if you apply under a different license, you're not getting in. So we went to the Board of Adjustment, and he opposed it. So I'm very disappointed, but I wanted to tell you the facts as they are. I didn't go at risk. I got approval from the city based on, I had to totally retrofit the building, security doors, cameras, reconfigure bathrooms, sinks. I did all of that in reliance of getting this open. And they agreed to it. And everybody's here. I feel like I'm in the Coliseum.
Okay.
So, do you have any questions? Because I can answer any specific question.
No, I don't believe so. I think you laid out the chain of events as you see it. So.
And I just, one last point, if I may. I just don't understand how, and I was supposed to own Natural Herbal Remedies. I now own Park. And when I say own, I control the board. I'm the sole board member. To just say, well, if you were still part of that, if you did a deal with Natural Herbal Remedies, it's okay. But because you're moving somebody else in here, you can't have it. That just doesn't make sense to me. So I apologize. Didn't mean to take too much.
Oh, no apologies necessary. Thank you. Ms. Sarkissian.
Just want to reiterate some things, answer some of the comments, and just re-educate that this is a very patient-driven facility that serves medical marijuana patients. That they have certificates from their doctor and the card, and they go through that state process, and this facility obviously operates through the state process as well. Just also that the suite is operating under the compliance of the way the condo association looked. It's not changing the facility. It's not putting up any fences, any gates, or any kind of crazy stuff. It's going to look like the rest of the facility. And as they mentioned, some of the other facilities there, the counseling sessions, which serve for whatever need they need for counseling. Sometimes they're there till 7, 8 o'clock at night. There's a wide variety. This location is right off of, of Priest. So you're going to come off of Priest. Honeywell's entrance is on the complete other side of that. When the original submittal was with, they went through the traffic safety parking. It met all the city requirements. Nothing is changing there. One of the comments that came up, I heard one of the people state that Eugene, they had a letter of opposition. He was at 960 West Elliott, which is not within 300 feet. We're at Priest and Warner. So that's not even within 1,000 feet, 1,500 feet. That's pretty far off. The other one, I believe, was 8675. The other comments is that this is a certificate that is being, what the other mother was referring to is the current certificate for this is in Wickenburg. And that certificate would be moved to this location. And that would be the ownership and how they run that facility with those cannabinoid or whatever the term is, the different strains that different things have. And I'm sure everybody's seen on the news the different strains. There's non-THC or non-this or that. And so just for like any other medical marijuana dispensary, everybody carries different things. And so that's one of the items that this is not, there's not just 1 mile and a quarter away because it may not serve the same thing. And as she also mentioned, that if she's trying different things to see what does and does not work, and there may not be something in one facility that treats a patient, but it may at this facility or a different one. The constant discussion of Lifetime being a daycare is because the only reason it is because they applied for a certificate after someone suggested they apply for it to oppose another medical marijuana facility near that site. Lifetime operates it. They require all parents to be on site. You're not allowed to leave the facility. You're maximum there of 2 hours. There are certain age restrictions, and they are not open all the time. They do not have staff there all the time, and there's typically 1 or 2 people. And I would hardly call that a child care facility. We contacted the state, and they are not required by law or by their company policy to have a child care license. The typical child care license, what everybody thinks of as actual daycare where you do a drop-off, is the one that is over 3,600 feet away. Yeah, Janet had mentioned where she was at, and I mentioned about the traffic was previously approved. The comment about wrapping around the facility, that's just operational stuff. That would not be allowed. You cannot have that according to the security plan and the police report. You can't have just people wrapping around like it's Build-A-Bear, pay your day or whatever. That's not, they even shut them down, and they're not even, they're just a Build-A-Bear. You can't have that kind of traffic like that. This site is specific. It does not, this variance is a variance site specific. It is not granting approvals anywhere else. The reason that we feel this one is so specific is because we're not using the former approval, but we're using the formal approval in the sense that it was previously gone to hearing. It was previously shown on maps. It was previously, if Herbal went in there, it was previously shown. Other locations to come in have not had that on their background. Those would be new sites asking for a variance that was never there and they never met compliance before. Whereas this one had in its case history, which is why the history on it is so important. We're not trying to circumvent time or anything like that. We are going in for a variance, just like any other business would possibly go in for a variance. Staff stated that the rest of the complex has been able to operate without code amendments or variances or any other stuff, which I couldn't find the history on it, but I noticed in the PCZ district there are certain things that require variances and use permits to go through the process, which are active right now. Outdoor dining, drive-throughs, outdoor sales, weekend hours. There's another facility that sells things on the site that could possibly require, so there's a smoke shop. They might have a smoke room. Those require additional variances and use permits.
Let's just make a clarification there. A use permit and a variance are 2 separate things.
Right.
And so I don't think there's anything in the code that requires a variance for a use. I mean, use variances we don't allow. Yeah, we allow variances from development standards, but not for uses in general.
I'm referencing it solely
Those
for the purpose.
drive-through uses and stuff are allowed by use permit.
I'm referencing
and they have
just
different criteria.
Right.
So I
But
just
I'm referencing
wanted-
it because the staff, that is one of their reasonings of why this doesn't meet certain things, is because they feel that the rest of the complex has been able to operate without any other thing happening. They were able to go straight under zoning, and that was it. And there are some items in there that they do require them to go through other processes. This is just my point. Not where the use permit or variance or whatever.
If a Starbucks wanted to locate in there with a drive-through, they'd have to come and get a use permit.
Well, Dunkin' Donuts is in there with a drive-through.
And
they've had to go
perhaps
through.
got a use permit.
They've had to go through
Right,
things.
but
And
not
so, as well as
variance.
the restaurant with the outdoor dining has gone through their process to get their outdoor dining. So it's not just a straight, I'm just stating it. I know it doesn't apply to, because it's not those sites, but it is a justification that the city used, so I want to rebut those comments. And then again, I mentioned the special circumstances is that it is a special circumstances because of all the applications and the site history that went on the site. The zoning clearance letter doesn't transfer, but it does make the history of it, what happened in the background, what happened, that it had already gone through the process. It has already been thought about. It was sold originally in, when it changed over in December or November of 2016, it was still a medical marijuana approved. It was just consistently until that 2017 hearing, which for whatever reason, they did miss that deadline, but that's why we're asking for the variance. Just like you would for any other variance in the city for setbacks, for houses or garages, or variances for different property percentages or open space. We're asking for it, and we're explaining why we feel we meet these 4 findings. So we feel that because of that background, that is a special circumstances. If we were in a different location that had not previously had that, and we were just stating, we want to be here and and reduce these separations, so now we qualify, but beforehand, it never met that qualification. It was never compliant, whereas this site previously was compliant. And then that people would have to keep coming in as things changed. And then the strict application does not deprive property, is that Natural Remedies had an ongoing application with the Department of Health and was prepared to do the inspection. However, it was paused. And during that time, Natural Herbal Remedies and Park, the current owners, were in discussions, and you heard from the owner, there was kind of some things going on. And so the tenant improvements were improved prior with the condo association's approval. You can't do a condo tenant improvement and not have authorization. It's like an HOA. You have to get it. They went through all those things. They had city permits. They had police came out. Everybody did the P's and Q's and made sure everything was right. And then during that time, something happened in November of 2016 where everybody kind of just, I'm done. The board couldn't agree with my client, and they split. So he went on his own and tried to continue the process. And that's where then changed the ownership name, and then the owner, even though he was on the previous board of directors for Natural Herbal Remedies, now it became a problem. So by doing that, he went through the whole process of opening the site, but because something happened with the just organization of the company itself, he has to go into other stuff, even though he spent money on it and trying to get in process, litigation, applications to the state of Arizona, tenant improvements, did the whole 9 yards, picking everything out. The no special privileges, staff stated that a different dispensary to open and transfer certificate would be a special privilege. Dispensaries open and close and transfer their states just like any other type of business with permits. The open and close locations are found to be good locations or not, and now allowing another dispensary to operate in a previously acceptable location presents a business disadvantage when the new owner cannot guarantee the space is viable for the same use when a tenant leaves without going through a new zoning approval. So he's at a disadvantage more than anything. As you no matter, depending on, also at the mercy of what code changes are going through at the place, and they could change whenever a code amendment happens. So the ownership for medical marijuana within Tempe in general, just as a disadvantage because they don't know what's going to happen. And then as dispensaries come in and go, if one person has an operational thing here and then they put in another application somewhere else from someone else, they now are not separate. The distance requirements, there's no guarantee, and it's a very temperamental market. You don't know what's going to happen. You can't do one thing from the next. And as you can see, there's a lot of people who are fighting for those locations. And then it's obviously not self-imposed. We're trying to get this variance because we were previously met that criteria. We previously met those separation distances. The location has not changed. We didn't put these restrictions upon us. They were already, we already had, it was already as a site, he was already working through, build it, you know, all the things. It was self-imposed. And those are the 4 things that we need to come back on. Not as if someone wants medical marijuana, if they believe it's something that works, if they, all those other different things that get in the way that go to the state law and legislature and the voters. This is about the 4 findings which we feel we meet. No special privileges. We're just trying to do what we're supposed to do. It's a variance for setbacks. It's not a variance to...
Not setbacks, separation.
Separation for those 2 locations.
Yes.
Which were, those locations were always there. In the previous cases, those did not change. No new apartments came in. No zoning changed. Same exact criteria, same location, same development standards around it. And so for those reasons, we feel we meet this. And we actually even fit in, as much as some of the residents, the surrounding condo association, feel it's detrimental. We feel it actually blends in perfectly with the patient care and wellness, because the people who might use those services in the other, throughout the complex could also use the services. Go home, just like a CVS pharmacy. You go and you pick up your prescription, you go here, you go to a counselor, then you go pick up your prescription.
Right.
And we just feel it matches the facility. It's right off the freeway, not the freeway, the Priest, but it's not the first building. It's not visible. It's not a giant medical marijuana dispensary here. There's no giant sign. We have to maintain the signage requirements for the condo association, the building architecture. Everything remains the same. The parking remains the same, which was previously approved, and we've gone through the proper steps over and over and over again. And so now we're trying to get the separation distance waived for this site, because it was not something we intended, not something we imposed. And then go through the zoning clearance letter. And then if something were to happen, we really hope it doesn't, because it would be a great asset for the people who are driving to Wickenburg right now for facilities, is for them to, if somebody else comes in, they go through the zoning clearance letter again. And they also would have to be verified with the state. So you don't have felons running businesses. Everybody gets clearance cards for working in them and for running them. So I feel a little bit like it's not pertaining to this case, but in situations like this, the city is overstepping a little to the state level in regulations. And I feel that this one particular was previously approved, previously certified with the state. Don't really see how this changed that much that now this is not an acceptable location. Nothing changed.
Okay.
So, yeah, and we're not asking again for a zoning verification transfer, because that's not it. You can't do that anyway. And we're not asking for determination if medical marijuana is something that people need or don't need. That's up to the patients to decide in the state. So.
Okay. Thank you.
May I ask you just one more thing?
One more thing.
Thank you very much.
You can make it quick. Okay, thank you. One more
I just want
thing.
to ask you one question. As the representing the property, if the association had agreed to allow a medical marijuana dispensary, and then they tell you, sorry, sue us, which we were forced to do and won. If you had a dispensary license and you wanted to move into my location, would you do that while there's pending litigation?
You know what? I'm not going to answer that.
I'm just,
I'm
you
not
don't even
gonna
have
answer
to.
that.
You don't even have to, but you asked,
Yeah.
you asked a very important question. You said, why so long between this?
Right,
And that's
it's
the reason.
it's an issue between 2
I
private
understand, but
parties, and it's not germane to discussion.
I didn't want you to
I
think.
know it's clearly important to you, but it's
And
really not germane to my
I understand.
analysis.
I didn't want you to think we just relaxed and we
Okay.
just said, we're gonna miss the deadlines.
I
That's
don't,
all.
okay, thank you. And that'll allow me to segue nicely into, as I go through this case and I render my opinion, what I don't do is take into account my personal opinion on medical marijuana or anything like that. We are not here to talk about the merits of the medication itself. I know a lot of people feel strongly about it either way, but we are not here to talk about that. We're not here to talk about the economic benefits of a medical marijuana facility. As I read at the beginning of the hearing, that thing that I read that I think people roll their eyes when I read and go, oh, why does she have to read that? It's precisely so that I can remind people during a hearing. I read it for a reason, and one of the things that I read said, I have the duty to carry out both the provisions and the intent of the Zoning and Development Code and the general plan. And I like reading it at the beginning of a hearing because it allows me to keep my focus on what's truly important here and what my job is to do here. So we're here as, you know, we've been talking about for a variance for the minimizing of some separation requirements, one from a child care facility, one from a residential use. One of which is the child care facility. It's a very small distance. That one doesn't trouble me. But the request to collapse the residential separation requirement is pretty extensive. I think we're being asked to take it from 1,300 feet to 890 feet. That's really, really significant, and to me, makes it under a higher level of scrutiny. So we've been talking about these findings in the code. I know Ms. Sarkissian gave her take on how these criteria needs to be applied, and they're derived from state statute, and state statute says if you're going to vary from your code, you have to meet these very strict requirements, and you have to meet these findings. It's unlike a use permit, and I mentioned to one of the speakers, we're not talking about a use permit, we're not talking about compatibility and hours of operation and a lot of those other things that are very important, but they're not germane to this discussion. This is a pure variance land use discussion. So I'm going to go through the criteria and apply them as I see them applicable to this case. The first one is if I find, truly a findings, if I find that there's a special circumstance applicable to this property, and it's property specific, it's not operator specific, it's not use specific, it's to the property itself. The finding goes further. Does it have a unique size, shape, topography, location, or surroundings? I don't believe this property has any special circumstance. It's, you know, in a clearly defined office condominium complex. It's unremarkable in its topography. What the applicant would like us to believe is that the special circumstance is that it doesn't meet the separation distance, and that just is not a persuasive argument. Let's just say it did have that special circumstance. That's one that I believe would be self-imposed by the property owner. That's the last of the criteria, is if you find that a special circumstance exists, it cannot be self-imposed. The hardship can't be self-imposed. I feel bad for this applicant going through the chronology, going through the history. I believe that they are the product of unfortunate timing. I don't want to use the word victim, but the product of unfortunate timing. Another entity applied for the use acceptance letter. They got it. They proceeded accordingly. Then they ran into some private party conflict that really has no bearing on this decision. But then what happened while that was going on was our city council, our staff, we worked on a change to the ordinance. And that went through, I'm certain, a fairly lengthy process, public hearings, the DRC, the city council. You know, it's not something that took place overnight. There was a process that took place, plenty of time for opportunity for comment from prospective property owners, existing property owners, and you know, the fact that this applicant didn't have their act together in time to operate within the previously granted use. I think it's unfortunate, but they're not here as a legal non-conforming use because they never opened. Had they opened for business, they would be like any of the other dispensaries that are currently legal non-conforming within the city, but that's not the case here. I don't believe that the strict, going back to the findings, I kind of strayed there, I don't believe that the strict application of the code will deprive this property of privileges enjoyed by the property of the same classification in the same zoning district. Again, this applies not just to medical marijuana dispensaries, but all of the property owners in the same zoning district, in the PC zoning district. If this were a smoke shop, if it were a liquor retailer, I wouldn't find, in the same circumstance, I wouldn't find any of the arguments persuasive to collapse the zoning or the separation distances from those required in the code. I feel bad for you as a property owner. I feel bad for you as the applicant. I know you've tried to skin the cat a couple of different ways. You were denied by staff or by the Community Development Department. You appealed. You went to the Board of Adjustment and were denied there. And I have to concur with the decisions that they handed down and with staff's recommendation. And therefore, I'm denying the application for a variance contained in PO 180173. And that concludes our agenda for this evening. Thank you all for staying so long. Oh, wait. No, yeah, we're done. Sorry. I saw agenda item number 7. I thought I had missed something. So staff, do you have any announcements?
No, Hearing Officer McDonald, thank you.
Our next hearing is August 7th, correct? Okay, thank you. We're adjourned.